Delighted to have you here. We certainly have a lot of issues that we need to resolve with Albany, so. And we'll be glad to talk your ear off on those.
I'll support you.
Let's see, from the discussions, we had the determine a community tour of School 16. Have you heard anything from anybody downtown?
I have not, but I'm gonna take the lead on that and
Oh, okay.
tentatively set a date for Saturday. Second. I was just talking today about it. Saturday, September 15th.
Okay.
So I'm gonna tentatively look at having like a open house tour type thing where we'll be open during the day and the community can come in and have tours on that day. Because our ribbon cutting ceremony is on the 10th.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be very appropriate, you know, that those who can't make it or those who would like to, you know, do a tour, that they can come back a few days later and have at it.
Where, what time will the ribbon cutting ceremony?
It will be at 11 o'clock.
On the 10th.
On the 10th. We can talk it over with teachers, but there may be a time when it would be good to try to organize, when things are settled down a bit, some tours where, you know, a few people can go in and actually sit in at a class.
For
and
instruction.
something to interest them in possibly volunteering. Because doing the tour when the teachers aren't there doesn't give the teachers a feel for how many people are really interested in touring, and it doesn't give the people who are touring a good appreciation for the atmosphere when the kids are there. I don't know.
Right. We don't mind visits, but interrupting instruction
Oh, yeah, you
is
don't
a
want
big
to
thing. So
interrupt
when you
their
got too many
education.
people, it could be overwhelming for the
Oh,
students.
yeah.
So small groups, that's fine.
For the social, there's a friend of Mary's lives on the northeast corner of Aberdeen and Post there, and is willing to have her house used for a little, you know, social after school. Trying to get some of the neighbors and teachers to know one another. So we had talked about doing that on the Friday, the second Friday, and I think it was the second Friday after school starts, and then
It was the 14th and then a rain date of the 21st.
yeah. So, anyways,
Just want to table that for now.
yeah, we'll get something nailed down.
I did share it with some staff. They thought it was a good idea. They thought it was very nice.
Good. And the convention, anything further on
I
getting?
just needed to get confirmation on that permit for the other stuff that we talked about. And I hadn't got an answer yet on that one.
Okay.
So I will have to let you know on that. Okay.
Yeah, the thing, this year, the 19th Ward Community Association is going to have its convention over at School 16, since we got this nice new community center that is supposedly part of the school now.
I'm not sure. What was the date again?
It's
Sometime in November.
sometime in November. It's before Thanksgiving, and I need to nail down with somebody what exactly that date is. But we had a convention there back, well, it must be 7 or 8 years ago now, because it was before the school closed, and it was very nice. We had it in the cafeteria that time, and now they've got this even bigger gym, which will be great.
Oh, you're talking about the new Madison, right?
No, I'm talking about, we had a convention over at School 16.
Oh, we did in the gym.
Yeah, in the, well, it was the cafeteria. I'm pretty sure it was, yeah, it was in the cafeteria. And pretty decent. And then we've had it several times, a couple times at least, over at the new Madison, which is, used to be Madison. It was the high school that was there before, and then they tore that down and rebuilt what was supposed to be a junior high school at 200 Genesee Street. And then it got changed to K8,
You got changed around a number of times. Yeah.
brand new building, and you rip out all the Johns for the junior.
Put in baby toilet.
Put in baby toilets. How to waste money and whatnot. So anyways, we've had our conventions there a couple of times, and there's always some people who think that not being able to have alcohol is a problem, but it's an excellent school also. So we'll do it at 16 this year, and we're thinking this is a perfect occasion to try to get teachers to come in, become members of the association, have them stand up on the stage or whatever, and make a big deal about the fact that we've got our school reopening. And we also, I've been saying to Joe and people from other schools, this is really for all the schools in the 19th Ward, but since we're there at School 16, we're going to focus a lot on that. Then the candlelight dinners, that's generally in February. And but the one, if we do one at the cafeteria at the school, kind of a first crack at it, that can be whenever is convenient for everybody. And we're going to need to try to really stimulate a lot more interest in putting on candlelight dinners, because what you have is a family of volunteers to provide their home and the main course of the meal, and then everybody else brings a dish to pass, and you get 10 or so people sitting and chatting and enjoying each other's company, and you get to look around the house and
Check it out.
check it out and say, gee, this isn't too bad,
Nosy neighbors.
Nosy neighbors, yes. And the houses in the 19th Ward, even in some of the poorer parts of the neighborhood, they're generally pretty good, unless they've been really torn to shreds because of rental property sort of thing. But there are some beautiful homes. And so we've got, Ernestine is going to try to work getting parents involved in some, and community people involved in various school plays, and make sure we have a lot of advertising about what's going on so that there's more interest in participating. Because it makes a big difference to people in the community if they've gone in and they've seen the kids putting on a play. Suddenly the school means something different than that place that makes all the noise when the buses load in once a day, So we said at the last meeting, we decided that October 5th, the superintendent's conference day, then would be a good time for John and I and whoever else from the 19th Ward Community Association would like to come in and talk a bit more about some of these things.
How much time do you would need?
10, 15 minutes?
Probably 15 minutes max.
We just want to make sure that they all know that they're very much invited to become members of the association and take part in the candlelight dinners and all that stuff.
So I think that's like the shock factor. We're still, in the shock factor,
Mm-hmm.
and just trying to, readjust. And now that it's really going to happen, I think just getting settled in and getting these rituals and routines in place is like the priority, right now. So we get, really settled in. So I think everyone's just so happy to be back. So that's right there alone is just, Cannot enough be said about that. And the building is absolutely beautiful. I mean, they outdid themselves with it. I mean, it's amazing. You're not going to believe it's the same building when you see it. So I think that's a breath of fresh air within itself that should build some new culture and, you know, just the renewed spirit, energy, not just the beginning of school year, but just everything to look forward to. So I think this is going to be a good beginning. Being in a new place, we will have a few new faces. We've got a lot of new initiatives that we're putting in place to just provide that structure, like I said, for the rituals and the routines to really be solid so that we can all be on one accord. And so while we're putting all those, you know, systems and procedures in place, we're trying to build this new culture, the new family, you know. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
percentage of kids were in Scioto Street last year?
What was the question?
What percentage of the kids this year were in the...
I haven't been able to do that yet, but that was
Okay.
one of our things to do to look at our data at the zip codes to see.
No, this would be like, for the kids last year in grade 2.
Oh, you mean like, oh, mostly everyone's coming back.
Okay, good.
Yeah, pretty much everyone except for middle school, of course, you know.
Yeah.
We're back to a real primary, you know, intermediate, you know, primary, intermediate, pre-K through 6. And then any kids who may have transferred for whatever reason. But for the most part, we have most of our students. And we have quite a few new students, some actually in the neighborhood. So I was able to see where do you live. So quite a handful from the neighborhood. Some aren't happy about walking. So I got lots of calls coming in about the walking. A lot of, you know, with little kids, you know, kindergarten, first, second grade, they're like, no, my baby can't walk to school. So we got a lot of that going on because, you know, the district, I think it's 1.5 miles. And if you live
Well, that's
greater
the
than
state.
that,
That's the state.
oh, the state.
So, Joan,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
That's
ready.
precisely
So-
what we want to have you
What the
listen
issue
To
to.
have those
is
those policies lifted for our younger students.
right, but if you live within 1.5 miles of the school, you don't get, the city doesn't get compensation for the busing of students inside that.
A mile and a half?
Yes.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah,
For every grade level.
Every
And-
grade level.
And that's a long walk. That's a long walk for any kindergartner and probably any elementary student. And so what we've argued for, to have community schools, we really need to have busing that's like door to door, or the option of busing door to door. Because I'm sure people would be alarmed to say, I got 1.5 miles to walk, you know?
And I have a 4-year-old or a
Yeah.
5-year-old.
Yeah. That's
So in other words, okay, so here's the school. This is the house. That's 1.5 miles right there. You live here, you can get, this school's gonna be compensated. These
Yeah.
kids have to figure out how they're gonna get there. If you guys just decide to bus them, you're not gonna get compensated.
yeah.
Well, there you go.
So, I mean, it's destroyed neighborhood schools having that regulation, especially after in 2002, I think it was, the district had its managed school choice policy was instituted, which said that parents could pick a school that they'd like their child to go to, and it was to give everybody an equal chance of getting a good education or not getting a good education by letting people apply for the better schools. And you know, if you're in a small town, well, 1.5 miles from the school that's in the middle of the town, that saves your busing costs a lot, because now you're just busing the kids that are 3 or 4 miles away. But in Rochester, you could always find a school that's 1.5 miles or further away to say, I need a bus. And so it's not safe. 80% of the kids get bused, something like that.
Right. 100% in Brighton.
Yeah.
Carla, do you get a sense if it's predominantly safety parents are concerned about, or the distance, or scheduling?
I think it's safety. I think safety is the first, especially, you know, the neighborhood is not the way it used to be.
Yeah.
So they're concerned about that, and if was concerned about that. And then I would think like their own personal child care work is another issue, because a lot of people they go to work and they rely on the bus to be like that little,
Bridge.
that bridge in between, the time that they have to go to work or between the kids have to go to school. Many parents actually get a babysitter on the other side of town just to have their kids bused. I mean, they go out of their way to do that, or they put them in a school where they have to be bused because it helps them out on that way with the child care. So I would say safety and then just personal, whatever the family needs.
And what does the district spend on transportation? About $85 million a year?
66.
I remember
think.
65 or
Yeah.
so.
Okay, but it's a lot of money, and if we could guarantee safety and help with the scheduling, and save money over that might even be better.
Just tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems really illogical if I'm going to take a child who lives here and get them on a bus over here. That costs money. But I could just bus them here,
Right, it's cheaper.
right?
Yeah, though I don't know how the law contracts work, if it's by distance or if they're
Right,
just,
right.
students are on a bus.
Right. It just, for me, I'm having trouble with the logic of it, of why we would spend the money to bring them over here.
Well,
It is what it is.
I suppose we should follow the money, which is the rule of thumb.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody's making money off
No,
of
I
it.
know. I'm a business owner, and I just like that. Like, okay, that's not making sense. Just saying.
Well, the Senate did pass a version of the bill like 2 years ago, but it never went through the House or the Assembly. Sorry,
Wait, say that again. They did.
the Senate did, yeah.
Okay.
So Joe Robot could tell you that, or Rumsberger. But that was only as a pilot. I
Yeah.
think the school district made a big error in trying it as a pilot for one school as opposed to doing a blanket across the district.
If anybody wants to do this, like my email address is on there, my personal email on that card I gave you. If someone wants to just shoot me that legislation or something, just so I can just read about it. Again, I'm pulling in information right now. Some things work, some things don't work. I'm not ever going to say I'm an expert in this area. I'm just learning, so that's.
This is a website that we use to document everything we're doing.
Okay.
There's a group on there that's in the column under groups on the right side of the page called Southwest Education Forum, and there's tons of minutes from the various meetings and plenty there to as background, but you may be kept reading for the next 3 years. Eleanor takes great minutes at all these meetings.
I wonder sometimes if you compared that and this, how wonderful these minutes would be.
Well, actually, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. I go, when
And
I'm
you do
going
go through them.
when I go through them, I go back to the videos a lot because because I'm terrible, and the reason I take such terrible notes is I have trouble really focusing on what somebody's saying, and I get through it. Where was my brain in the last 2 minutes, And Eleanor is just incredible. She sits there, and the information flows through her brains to her fingers.
Thank you.
So anyways, the busing is really a big issue that hurts neighborhood schools a lot. And you can sympathize. I mean, there are some neighborhoods where, you could walk 4 blocks and it'd be perfectly safe for a kid, not a kindergartner, but then there are some places where just walking across the street to the school, you cross some of the major arteries and you think twice about saying, just walk. And the other thing that is an issue is there are various groups that have been trying to promote a walking school bus where a parent will go to 10 or so houses in their neighborhood and pick up the kids and walk them to school. And that works if you've got a critical density of students in the neighborhood, and if 80% of the kids are being bused from all over the city, then it's hard to find enough houses on a particular set of streets to make it worthwhile. So that would be a good thing to try, and there have been some places where they have groups that bicycle to school, but again, you need to have enough kids in the neighborhood to make that practical if they're going to go as a group.
What'll be interesting to see is in Akron, for the school that LeBron James sponsored, that's a 2-mile radius for busing, but every kid in the school gets a bike.
Wow.
Every kid in the school gets free tuition at Toledo State or whatever university is there. It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, bikes in winter would be a little tough here.
I was volunteer for our community bikes, and we refurb a lot of bikes. And one December, we had a guy come in. We're on Hudson Ave, and he needed to get to work in Eastview Mall, and he rode that every day.
Eastview Mall.
Yeah, Eastview Mall.
Okay. Joe, who came in, is principal at School 29.
Okay.
And
You're?
I'm Joan Seamans. I'm running for the state senate.
Oh,
And
nice to meet you.
I'm giving my card.
Thank you.
I'm sure I'm listening and learning about the district,
Beautiful.
because I don't think anyone's been paying attention for a long time.
Excellent.
And
Cool.
I'm just gathering.
Good. Thank you for that.
And education is like a huge thing to me, and I was here months ago and somebody had mentioned, and I could be wrong, but that some of the schools have one social worker for 400 children. And I was very, very offended by that, and I talk about it all the time. I think it's obscene. And so education is everything. It's the foundation of all success. It can bring us out of poverty. Yeah, and I believe in that investment. So I don't know what's been working and what hasn't been working. But until we get there, we have to keep working on it. So again, I'm not the expert. I just need for you guys to tell me what needs to be done. Yeah.
well, we're good at telling people what they should be doing, right?
Well, it's hard. I don't know, am I allowed to talk now?
Go ahead.
All right. Sorry, I just don't want to interrupt. Like I said, I wasn't going to say a word, and then it happens. I start talking.
Hey.
When I'm out through this very, very big district, one of the things that's challenging is I might be in Genesee County, and there are some folks there that have said to me, well, New York State has the highest per student education rate, $19,000 per blah, 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 blah. And they throw those numbers out. And for me, it's like they're trying to portray waste and so on and so forth. But I look at this district, and I have Clarence, Amherst, if you know that part of Erie County.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my taxes just went up $5,000. I mean, the schools are phenomenal. They're everything they want. Okay, let's build a stadium. Let's go do it. Blah, blah, blah. And then you have the city of Buffalo. And then here I worry about the schools out here. So what the heck's going on? I always think that a zip code should not define a child's education or the quality of education. And so, yeah. We need to level the playing field a little bit. So I hear that number when I'm out there, and people are like maybe they're Republicans, and they don't really feel the need for investing in education, and that's the thing they throw out. So I will put that out here. How would you respond to that when I get that thrown at me? Like, well, we don't need more money for education. That we have the highest in the country, and blah blah blah. So what'd you guys say? What'd you say to that? Like, help me out with that.
Well, I think that there's, it always amazes me how much money gets spent on it, but in terms of the proof of the pudding is in how the school's performing. And if they're not performing well, either something isn't being done right at the local school level, or you have things like, well, the busing issue, which doesn't seem at first glance to be that much of an issue, but if it destroys the sense of community in the neighborhood, it impedes having the atmosphere you need to build up in a school, because there's a lot more to having things run well in the school than having the teachers give tests and show up on time. You have to build up a rapport between teachers and students, and it helps if the students stay put in the school for most of their time in the school. And interrupt me, I'm thinking back on when my kids were going and when I was going to school. But stability is one of the big things that you want to have in a school, and if you've got everybody in the in a particular area is renting and having to move around because of upheavals in their lives, and they see the school their kids go to as well, whichever school I can get them bused to will do, and the kids are constantly moving around, that hurts the kids, it hurts the school, and we have to really look at putting the resources into the schools to build up the environment, to build up the sense of community in the school. And that's one of the reasons we're talking about trying to get the community involved with the school as much as possible. If you went to that school and your kids go to that school and your neighbor's kids go to that school, boy, if something happens that they're trying to close that school, you're going to have an uproar in the community. Or if they don't, well,
Right.
big yawn, another
Right.
school closes,
So right now, the children can choose a school, lottery system. So the goal is to keep your neighborhood school, and have the children in that neighborhood go there. And if you could have them, the little ones, be bused, that would solve a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I believe in the sense of community. I mean, I think it's all a nurturing, and again, I'm not an expert, you guys are, but for me, mentorship, nurturing, and a sense of community is really important.
So, did you get an answer to your 19,000?
No, I didn't get it. I'm writing notes now, but so I would like to hear more, really. So I want to be able to address that when people say that.
Yeah. So my question would be, what made up, what does that 19,000 represent? Because I still hear teachers are buying their own supplies. I know that happens. I'm a teacher at Oasis. I know that happens.
Yeah.
So I know that number's thrown out, but what exactly are these students getting for 19,000 per student? Because I don't see it.
Right.
I don't see a student getting $19,000 worth of investment. So I don't know if you guys, what's that about?
Well, the biggest cost in New York State and in Rochester is salaries, and it's employee costs. We have good contracts for our staff. We have good benefits. Now people say, well, let's cut the benefits, let's cut the salaries. Well, let's just look what's going on around the country. Teachers are going on strike, not for more money. They're going to pay teachers $10,000 each, buy them off in Phoenix, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. They told them, we're not taking the money. We want the resources. We want to make the profession a real profession. The states are cutting. If you look at the rankings of state education results, New York's one of the highest rated states in educational results. On common assessments, you can compare. Rochester, yeah, I know we're struggling. We're the worst district in New York State as far as that goes. But it's the general education. You live in Clarence or Williamsville, right?
I live in Williamsville.
You have very strong school districts there. So the point of the conversation, what you're getting for it is a really high quality education for the children. And I know in Rochester it doesn't always translate that way, but in a lot of other districts it does. And I think that's what you would say. People are, because you really, I'm hearing in Florida now, for example, this is absurd. Okay, Florida is going to hire 20-year-old people to be teachers who have 2 years of college
Oh,
experience.
stop.
I'm not making
Really?
this up.
Wow.
They can't hire teachers because they pay them such a low salary, nobody wants to do it. So you can do that. You can cut teacher salaries, slash them all, cut benefits, and then be left with people who are unqualified to teach their children. Okay, and I heard that. I was not surprised at all because those are states that cut their expenses to a bare bone, and I was not surprised when the teachers were going to get bought out, paid off by these legislators, and refuse the money. They're not striking for that. Yeah, part of it is salary. It's part of, even in New York, you see we don't have necessarily what each child needs, but for the most part, we do have the smart boards and technology that the children can use. So that's what I would say to people if they ask that question.
But you just talked about the education around the state of New York, and I want to know
In Rochester?
in Rochester why, when the investment is so high, are our rates so low?
Wow, that's $1 million. It's a $760 million question. That's the budget is. Go ahead.
Well, let me just throw an idea out there.
I give you my answer. I don't have the answer. Also, how he's achieving it.
Yeah, and to overcome those challenges that those children are having, and their parents love them, and they want the best for the students, for those kids. But when you have a community that's isolated like that, it creates, I think it creates enormous barriers. And then if the schools start faltering, then they become even more. It's a vicious cycle that we've all seen. People moving out to the suburbs because they feel like and my kids are getting a great education in the city, but it's.
What school do your kids go to?
I got one at Wilson and two at Soda. And
Another thing we can look at, and this is another thing that no one wants to talk about, is I think it was in Syracuse. It's like a big pie. Here's the city of Syracuse in the middle, and you got James Road DeWitt, and I think it's still this way. Metro sort of school with the pie, and so the city, the concentrated poverty sort of, spread around through the pie, and their school districts do pretty well. Syracuse City does better in general. And no one wants to talk about that. You bring up metro schools to people, they look at you like a three eyes, okay? That's another thing, that's the elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about. And that would certainly help the education of the children in this area. But it's entrenched, call it racism if you want, it's entrenched, probably is, it's entrenched in this area. So,
Well, look at the response to urban suburban. In suburban school districts, have 5 little black kids, it's going to somehow spoil the whole school.
And urban suburban is 20% free introduced lunch.
Say that again?
It's 20% free introduced lunch, urban suburban,
Versus 90%, right?
in the city.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're actually putting a lot of poor kids in the suburban schools, but there's still opposition to it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on that these are honest conversations. You're asking for our feedback. Part of Rochester, there's systemic things in the city school district. I think that are things that we can't really overcome, not immediately. Because I'm not an expert on those, but just from being around a long time,
Like, example?
Well,
Tell me more.
there's not a lot. Unfortunately, I'm just going to state some facts. There's not a lot of stability in leadership. There's a frequent turnover of our superintendents. It's just a fact. I'm stating facts. I'm not using criticism.
No, that's all right.
And like for example, in some local districts in Rochester, we had a superintendent retire in a local town in 19 years. All right. Another one, a couple retired with 19 years involved. So there's a lot more stability with that too. I don't know how we change that paradigm. I don't have an answer for it right now, but I think that hurts a little bit because Carl can tell you we try our best to really continue as principals to build momentum, and then something else changes. We go to another vision, another version of something. It's a fact, and I gotta be real careful in my role not to be like I'm criticizing people that supervise me. But that's what it is, and that's something that I don't know how we change that. But that's something we need to look at.
Well, I think the school board, when they select the next superintendent, has to pick somebody younger.
for somebody committed for sort of the long
I mean, you
haul.
can't hire somebody in their 50s and expect them to work for 20 years.
Everything else we have around here.
Do you guys have business cards or a way of?
I'll drop you
on the
I'll
bus?
drop you an email.
All right, you got,
Carla dot Roberts.
I thought you were here, okay. I thought you were on my list.
Sorry, I gotta run everybody.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, take care, Joe.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'll email you. This is your email address?
Yes,
Joan?
please,
I'm
yes.
sorry I have to
Good
take
night,
off.
everybody.
Take care.
No, that's
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
email you, I promise you, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the early on when we got started back, it was maybe a year or so after we got started, we got some people to come in and give us a little overview of what's going on in terms of institutional racism. You know, people, white people who are not used to having police officers stop you because you're black while driving in a white neighborhood, or the various things that go on. We don't always fully understand what all the factors are that are impacting what's going on in the schools. And I don't know, you went through that. What was your thought of the class that Judy put on there?
I don't remember going through that.
No? I think you were at one at a library, as I recall. But anyways, it's stuff that you may have heard, but it always helps to go through that. And that's one of the things that is an issue in schools. If you've got teachers who are 80% white, 90% white, grew up in the suburbs, went to a teaching college that was predominantly white, and good people, but you don't necessarily come into the Rochester City School and see a young kid who has had all sorts of hysterical terrible things going on at home. Brother got picked up last night, and they didn't get all the sleep they needed. There are all sorts of things that they run into that the teacher may be very unaware of that may be happening. So having some sort of training so that the teachers have ethnic and racial sensitivity to what the kids they're dealing with encounter is important, and it's not always done as much as possible.
But that would also say there's the need for counselors and social workers
Oh, yeah.
in schools.
All right, so is it true, the number I was given, that there's like one social worker for 400 children?
I have no idea.
I'm not
And for
sure.
me, that to me is just insane.
That may
Well,
be.
yeah, because I think that is because in a school there's about 500 kids, but there's only one social worker.
And I would think in your at-risk schools where there are a lot of
Yeah, you should have more than
challenges,
that. Yeah.
they're
And
Well,
I'm
you
not
can
sure.
look on, actually, if you go on the webpage and go to the budget, it'll show you actually all the salaries of everybody in the school, but
Mhm.
also the positions. So that might be one way to
Yeah.
find out.
I just feel like we need to listen to some of the people that we don't want to listen to, that are shouting and saying something's wrong. And they are African American, and they do represent African Americans. And even though we might not like how the information is presented, we have to hear it and absorb it. We have to listen to it. There's a website, SURG.
Fine, a search. I'm part of it in Buffalo, yeah.
Awesome.
So
There's but there's a lot of people that have no clue that exists.
Yeah, no, I've worked with them. I started in activism before I decided to run.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's what we like.
So I get a lot of information from there that helps me gauge my interactions and helps me think more deeply about how I'm engaging the students I deal with.
Let me ask you a question. How are the class sizes in the schools in the 19th wards? Like, what's the ratio?
Some are actually pretty small. Let's see, the one my wife worked in last year probably had 16, 18 kids, something like that.
Okay.
That was a first grader. I was in fourth grade classes. They were a little bigger. They were probably in the 20s somewhere. But Carla would know what they have planned. I mean, the plan numbers is a lot higher than that.
So, let me ask you another question. Do you have in your classrooms with a teacher? Do you have dedicated like aides or teachers' aides, like that they're there full time every day? Like, does the teacher have someone else in that classroom with them, another person all the time, or are they doing it alone?
I think it's mostly alone.
Some classes will, if it's
Teachers' aides are usually like pre-K, and like the
Pre-K
lower grades.
and-
My daughter
kids who have learning
Parents
disabilities.
and teachers' aides.
Do you have like do we have the young women and men that are getting teaching degrees? Maybe they're getting their college paid for. With the new programs we have with the Excelsior program. Is there anything that would let them make a commitment to this school? Is there a way of like channeling, like, okay, you're going to get your college for free. Let's work for 2 years in the school system, and so now a teacher would possibly be able to have another person in the classroom, so they now have like even a better scenario, so we can be mentoring the children and spend, I don't know. I'm just saying, is that something that's, I mean,
I'm
for
not
me
sure how many programs they have like that they're tied into.
And that's another thing that I think the district makes really difficult, is having, like, to me, why wouldn't there be a direct connection to two colleges like the School of Teaching and Learning at the U of R? Why wouldn't those students be able to do their internships, as you say, as a teacher's aide in a city school district? I mean, that's like,
why isn't that happening?
I don't know, but I do
Well, I know
know.
Brockport kids are in the schools where they were like 3 years ago.
Okay.
And that was an annual event. They were assigned really as volunteers to different classrooms,
Okay.
but the schools would decide where they wanted to put them.
Yeah, there seem to be a lot of barriers to having like an affiliated connection to community or outside schools. Like it has to come to the school is failing, so the U of R will take them over now. It seems like we should be more proactive. We should be integrating students who are learning about education into our school system.
Right. I think there should be. I mean, I don't know. I'm just over here. I would think if there was a commitment that the fantasy. I would say my fantasy is that we have a ratio of 1 to 7, where you have actual nurturing of children, and you know that their children, they're struggling, and they have situations, and you start to build this. And again, this is just me. I'm not in education. This is just me, just thinking this. Like, if you had that teacher, and we have, young professionals that are getting their education, and this would be their commitment. I mean, I have friends that were doctors, and they got their med school paid for, and they did work for 4 to 6 years in clinics in Buffalo, and that was their payback. So I think about that. If there was a way that we could have, children cared for, and I know this is probably a weird idea, but some of them that if they, especially the young ones, if they could see even the same teacher maybe a couple years in a row.
Some people do that.
And it's just for me that, again, it's like we can't make up for a home life, but sometimes if you have that stability and somebody that really knows that this child has this happening and they're working with them. And I have 7 kids I'm going to keep my eyes on. and this is my job, and I'm going to educate them, and I'm going to find, you know, and but that's just me. I mean, this is me thinking like that's the fantasy.
You can teach resiliency skills. Those can be taught, but you have to be sensitive to the fact that they need to be taught. That
Right.
something is existing.
Right.
That when a child comes to you in the morning, there may be some
Right.
decomposing that needs to be done. They may need to share something first before you throw a bunch of math at them. And there isn't a more direct connection to the fact that we're pushing kids into prison. I don't know what it is. That you would look at the 3rd grade reading level and
Is there
say,
a study?
yes.
You emailed to me because you've watched 13th, right?
What?
You've watched the documentary. Oh yeah.
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 I think it's
That's-
you would find the school to prison pipeline. It's and what's irritating is it's common knowledge. It's common knowledge that they look at 3rd grade reading levels and determine the size of the prison.
How do we fix that? How do we break that? How do we look at a 20-year plan? How do we look at a 20-year plan and say we're going to eliminate poverty through education? How do we eliminate poverty through education and say it's our goal? If we started tomorrow, how would we do it?
I'm going to
How's that
recommend
for a
that if
question?
you reach out to Howard Eagle, he will tell you. I recommend reaching out to him.
I have to
He,
go.
you know,
Okay,
it's
take
like
care.
hard to hear sometimes, but I think his message needs to be heard, and there is enormous validity to it. Enormous validity.
Howard Eagle.
Howard
Yeah.
Eagle.
Yeah.
You can get him on. He's in Surge, I think.
Okay.
Surge, yeah.
Take
All
care.
right, that's cool. Thank
Take
you.
care, John.
Thank
Bye,
you.
John.
I just Googled something. I'll just Google it. Okay.
He's used to be a city school.
In fact, if you go to the school board meeting tomorrow, I think he's trying to
Oh, that's right.
get a big to-do over the
School board.
the new expert teacher there that's been
Yes.
assigned.
They've hired someone from outside Rochester, someone who's supposed to have all this insight, and this has been done before. I mean, we've always brought in people who are going to fix everything, and it's an enormous amount of money, and he would probably be, that would be a really good board
He'll be
meeting.
there because
Tomorrow?
he was sending
Is it
stuff out.
tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
6?
Let me just
6
see
or
what I have
7.
going on
Yeah.
tomorrow. My life is nuts, but let me okay, let me just see. Again, this is, you know, I'm not gonna. I just we gotta figure it out. You know, I mean, education is everything,
Yeah.
and that's my question. How do we eliminate poverty through education? How do we do that?
That's a good question for him.
I will.
That's a really
Today's
good question for him.
today's Wednesday or Thursday?
Today
Sorry.
is Wednesday.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I wonder that myself every day. What that is.
Okay, so you know what? I'm
Yeah.
supposed to walk door to door tomorrow, but let me see my last appointment of the day. What time is this meeting tomorrow?
I think it's probably 6:30 or something like that. That's usually when they start. Isn't it?
Let me see if I can find it on there.
Thursday. And so if I go there, what would be happening? Like, what would?
Well, there'll be, most likely there'll have been a lot of people who have written in objecting to the distinguished educator, who, from what I hear, I was talking to Cecilia yesterday, and she thinks he sounds pretty good. There have been some who, there was one that was supposed to come in a few months ago, but that got squelched somehow. But anyways, there are, Howard will give you a good perspective of what some of the racial inequities are in the system. one of the things that I know he's run for school board several times, and if you ask somebody, okay, which board members do you think you can get along with best, rank the board members for me, and they say, they're all terrible. I'm sorry, but if I'm going to vote for somebody for school board, I want somebody who can work with other people, and that's been, I think, one of his problems. So he has some good insights into the racial issues, but it's,
Would I be better off meeting with him privately or coming and sitting in the meeting? What do you think, you guys?
I think sitting in the meeting to get a sense, and then meeting with him privately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sitting in the meeting to get a sense of Howard, and then meeting with him privately.
Another
And he'll be there. He'll be there.
Oh, I'm sure he'll be there.
He's in the audience. He's not in the school
Yeah,
board.
he's,
So,
I'm not sure what he's doing.
all
for,
right. So I'm going to try. I can probably change my schedule because I just think this is important. I just, and I hey, I just want to get in the Senate and do something that can help this area. I really do. I like, and but I don't think that any part of this district you can paint with a broad stroke. You can't.
No,
I look at incremental problems here and buses here. What's here is different than Williamson, Clarence, even the city of Buffalo. Although the city of Buffalo is
and you'll talk to some people and they'll say that, they look at neighborhood schools, that there's racism involved in that because there's variation between, one neighborhood and another as far as affluence. But when you look at the city school district schools, they're all in the 85 to 95% minority.
Right.
Because the affluent communities, the parents either went out
Kicking
of
us
that
out?
community.
Yeah, we'll be closed in a few minutes.
Yeah.
We'll go.
They either moved out when they were having kids and we were out in the burbs, and now they're back in the community without kids to put in the schools, or they sent their kids to private schools. So there's more difference between one neighborhood and the other if you looked at incomes than there is in terms of the schools in that neighborhood versus that neighborhood. They're all pretty much heavily mired in poverty because the people that are going to them
Yeah.
are
Cecilia,
in that
right?
boat.
What was your name again?
Oh, I'm Eleanor Coleman.
Why is Cecilia her right at the top?
He
Eleanor.
said Cecilia Golden.
Okay.
I
Oh, there you go.
work with Youth Build. It's a construction program for 17 to 24-year-olds, at-risk youth. And OASIS, the Office of Adult Career Education Services, which is part of the city school district.
Okay, and then
And my
Your
name's
name?
John Boutte.
okay, you're John. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
There you go.
John.
All right, got it.
And I would recommend you touch base with Mary Adams. She was a school board member. She resigned not too long
My notes
ago.
are a disaster. Huh? Mary Adams. Okay, Mary Adams.
So I've got Howard Eagle's email here. Oh, there it is. So school board meeting August 23rd, 6 p.m.
Would you shoot me an email? Would you
I'm going to actually forward this to you.
Please do. That's how I found out about this. Just email me is great because
Would you like to be on, I have an email distribution list for the Southwest
Yeah.
Quadrant.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put you on it.
Yeah.
And that way you'll at least have a sense.
Yes.